people who take walks at night. What's the scariest thing you've seen? Almost 100% sure I witnessed a kidnapping. I was going to get my mail late at night while living in an apartment complex, and on the way back, I noticed a woman in her pajamas surrounded by a few men right by a car. There was a noise and looked like they forced her in the car and drove off. I found her slipper nearby on the grass. I, of course, called the police and they came, and I let them know what I saw, but I never found out what actually happened. I worked night shift in Kadena Air Base in Okinawa, Japan. I started walking to work because I did not have a car. I really enjoyed the walks. It was a good way to wind down after work, as the nights were cool and quiet and I could listen to my music without worrying about anyone else around. One night, while walking home, I heard some rustling in the jungle of trees on the way home. Next thing I know, all the lights went black and all I felt was a loud whoosh coming right at my head. I screamed like a little girl, ran, and dropped my iPod. It broke. Once I made it past the trees, I realized it was one of the giant bats that lived on Okinawa. It scared the ever-living shit out of me. I live out in the country, more woods and fields around me than houses. There are several dirt paths through the woods that farmers use for their tractors and all during the day. I like to run on these paths because it's usually quiet and no traffic, unlike the road. During the hottest part of the summer, I run at night because it's cooler outside. So, one night, it had rained during the day, so all the tracks on the path were gone. I was out running around midnight. I had an uneasy feeling but didn't see anything. But then I circled around and, on my second pass down a particular way, I saw my footprints, but then I saw another set of prints, bigger than mine, that hadn't been there before. Then I saw they made the turn the same way I had earlier. I cut it short that night, never saw anyone, but still. Wow, I did not expect all this. I live in a country town, and I'm male, so I feel reasonably safe taking a night or early morning, before sunrise, walk. If I see someone else, we might say good morning or good evening as we pass. Never had any reason to be afraid. But one early morning, I saw someone come stalking out of the trees as I walked past. It was pretty dark, so I couldn't really see much except for an outline, but I had full-on spidey sense get the fuck out of here feeling, so I just bolted. No idea if I was actually in danger, but you got to trust your gut on these things. A couple years ago, I was at the start of a typical weekday night stroll. I was living in an apartment complex in Florida at the time, so it was the only opportune time to do so, without being completely drenched. The exact moment I was crossing the sidewalk adjacent to the entrance of said complex, I witnessed a middle-aged dude punch his wife in her face, in full view of me, and another passerby. The passerby called the cops. The dude was arrested. It wasn't a scary situation to my own well-being, but I did find the situation chilling. For one, how nonchalant the guy was in assaulting his wife in public, and two, how both the abuser and the wife were pleading for the cops not to be called. It was domestic abuse so normalized, it happened in full public, without any second thought or rationale. Many years ago, my boyfriend and I decided to take a late-night walk around his generally safe neighborhood. We got a few steps past the driveway when a shirtless guy came running over with a hammer in one hand, and a machete in the other. My boyfriend stayed super calm and asked the man what was going on. Apparently, some man had just broken into his apartment and tried to kidnap his young daughter, so he was chasing him down to either shatter his fingers with the hammer or chop off his hands entirely with the machete, and he thought my boyfriend was possibly this man. My boyfriend gave me his car keys and told me to take myself home. So, I went and got his car, and by the time I was backing out of the driveway, the man was screaming at my boyfriend, who was just standing there calmly with his hands in the air. I drove a block away so the man wouldn't see me, rolled the windows down to try to hear what was happening, and called the cops. The machete man ended up running off, and I don't know if they ever got him. My boyfriend was fine though, thank God. I was out for a late walk in the rain. Always enjoy it because it's peaceful, smells great, quiet and never see anyone. Walked off this trail back into the road and saw a big pile of garbage under a tarp at the end of the cul-de-sac the trail ends in. Got a creepy chill like that could be a dead body or something, and I'd never know, just got a weird feeling that snapped me out of my calm walk. Picked up the pace. About 500 yards away, I noticed a parked car with a guy sitting there, in the dark, in the rain, just sitting there. Got super creeped out at this point and changed my route back to the main road and hurried home. Turns out it was a dead body someone had dumped under that tarp, was under there for 4 days before someone investigated it. The guy in the car turned out to be just a random dude, guy lives there and totally unrelated to the body. Still, took a few months off from my late night walks alone in the woods. I was walking the dog at night. When I got home, 2 shifty dudes was waiting outside my house. They asked if Haley was inside. I said there's no Haley in my home. They pushed for more, giving me a description of this Haley. I said no again and offered to ask the local police or something since they were not from the area. They left, but not really. They waited in a car that didn't belong on my street. Haley was my next-door neighbor's daughter. So, I was pretty pissed off that my address was used for some reason, but I wasn't going to tell 2 random assholes where she lived either. I looked outside the window from upstairs in the dark. They were parked outside. Left after maybe 15 minutes. I was ready to call the police if they hung about longer. I called Haley's dad about it since he was on a taxi shift. He didn't know them. Next day, both Haley and her dad came over to ask about it. Haley feigned ignorance, claiming she didn't know them either. The matter didn't go as far as that, but I was mildly on alert for a couple of weeks since then. This happened before COVID lockdown. I worked night shift for 7 years. One night a young, thin blonde woman was walking down the street at 2 a.m. with no pants or underwear on and a button-up shirt open. I tried to ask if she needed help and she just stared forward, slowly walking, staring forward. I called the police, and they came and stood in front of her, and she slowly walked into the cop's hand and stopped. I didn't stay and went back to work. I still think a lot about her and what the fuck was going on. I tell myself it was sleepwalking or something, and that she wasn't just assaulted and in complete shock. I'll never know. But she was very pretty and seemed well groomed. It was very strange. I'm an overnight security guard. One night, I was watching cameras and saw someone underneath a grass tarp, where some landscaping was taking place on our property. I was guessing this person had probably tried to stash something before they went into detox, which is next door to our property. I get over to the tarp and don't see the guy anywhere. So, I start walking over the tarp and lifting it to look for any stashed items. Well, I ended up stepping on the poor homeless guy, scared the shit out of me. He was cool though and we fist bumped, and he went on his way. One time, I was walking around my relatively safe neighborhood with 2 of my friends after midnight. This loud red truck speeds by us, which is normal for the road we were on. Then a few minutes later, the same red truck drives by the opposite way going much slower. Again, just a couple of minutes later, he drives by, but this time stops 100 or so feet away from us and just sits there. Realizing that this is not normal, we ran through the yard to the next street over. For the next 20 or so minutes, we see this truck creeping up and down the neighborhood, while we hid behind some bushes, and when we finally thought he was gone, we ran to my house. He turned the corner onto my road, just as we were about to open my front door. I was hanging out with a friend one day and lost track of time. When night fell, I got on my bike to ride home, and about halfway home, I saw a figure standing under a street lamp. Being a teenager, I said fuck that and went to turn around until I realized I was already too far to turn back, so I turned back around to brave the night and the figure was gone. There was no way he could have run off in that time without me seeing him. Needless to say, I hauled ass home. I was walking one night in a pretty dark back road near my house at the time when glowing eyes on a round black body came bulleting at me. I shrieked like a child and felt super dumb when it turned out to be a big-ass black lab who got to my feet and rolled over wagging his tail and wiggling about. He belonged to someone in the neighborhood, who was taking him on a walk and ran from them when he saw me. He was a big floofy boy who just wanted love. I seriously felt so embarrassed, but also had a laugh. So did his owner. In college, I would walk back from the library very late. One night, I was walking back to my dorm, and something told me to look up. On top of the parking garage, there was a person glaring over looking like they were about to jump. I had no clue what to do, so I called the police. As soon as I looked back up, they jumped to safety. I ran up the stairs to find them but couldn't. The police never found them either. Either way, I hope they are okay today. On that same night, at the neighboring college, someone else jumped off a parking garage. I've always wondered if the two people are connected. Some guy did this to me and my dad at a gas station one evening when I was a kid. My dad was a retired cop turned social worker, very good at diffusing these sorts of situations. So when a dude confronts us with a pistol and demand my dad's money, he was very calm. Then he frowned, squinted at the gun and exclaims in an indignant voice, "Did you spray paint a goddamn water pistol?" The dude literally blusters a corny no. It's real. My dad says I can still smell the damn paint fumes, dumbass. Get the hell out of here, be glad I'm not calling the cops. One of the most bizarrely amusing things that ever happened to us when I was with him on an evening outing